Welcome back to the Hill of Justice. Today we are diving straight into the deep and massive debate happening right now in our community, and most of all, the court of public opinion, as we're analyzing the Walmart parking lot conflict. In our last video on this North Lauderdale shooting, the comment section exploded, and the conflict among you boiled down to one specific moment. The exact second the woman steps out of her vehicle, already holding a firearm. A large portion of you are arguing that by stepping out of the vehicle or the car with a gun in her hand, she automatically instigated the entire argument, stripping away her right to self-defense. It's a fair emotional reaction, but legally it's incorrect. And you got to look at it through this strict law enforcement investigative lens. In police work, we don't look at a chaotic event as one long, continuous movie. We have to take frozen snapshots of each individual section, particularly second by second, because in 1 second, a crime is completely absent. And in the very next second, a crime can instantly present itself. I'll give you an example. So if a guy comes after me with a knife, I'm a police officer, I'm in uniform, he clearly can see my authority. He's coming at me with a knife. He's angry, he's upset, and he's driving at me with a knife. Of course, our training is to go ahead and neutralize the threat. I pull out my weapon, and we're to do a double tap, make sure that the threat is eliminated, look both ways, make sure the scene is clear, and reassess. So what if I was to, at that particular moment, to go ahead, shoot him twice. He drops the knife. He takes another step forward or 2 steps forward. I shoot him again. He falls down to the ground, and I'm still shooting him to a lockback. Where am I at now? Where did I create the crime? Where was my crime created? Was it the moment that he drops the knife and he steps 2 more feet and I keep on shooting at him? Or is it as he's falling down to the ground, I continue to keep on shooting? So if the seconds beforehand, you're saying I'm free and clear of shooting him because he had a knife and he was aggressively coming towards me, when the threat immediately stops and I continue to keep on shooting at him, I then am going to be charged with excessive force. And this is where second by second, we have to break down each and every moment of the video because it all matters. Now let's break down the exact legal snapshot of stepping out of the vehicle with a weapon. Let's establish the baseline of law. In a state like in Florida, where you have a constitutional right to open carry under specific parameters, might I add, such as traveling to or from fishing, camping, or even a hunting expedition, or even for a lawful self-defense posture, simply stepping out of your vehicle holding a firearm by itself is not a crime. It is not a crime. A citizen has a lawful right to possess and transport a tool. If your vehicle is blocked by an aggressive individual stepping out of the car or holding a firearm down at your side, safely pointed at the ground, that is legally neutral. You're good. You have not committed a crime yet. Does an unarmed man walking toward a drawn gun justify a shot to the stomach, or is it just a clear case of manslaughter? That's where we're going to be talking about, because this is where the whole crux of this comes into issue. But watch the next snapshot. When does it become a crime? It becomes a crime the exact microsecond that weapon is brandished or leveled at another person during a purely verbal argument. Mind you, I'm going to say it again, exact microsecond. Okay? In the eyes of the law, if you point a firearm at someone or wave it around to threaten them before they have made any type of physical threat against you whatsoever, the snapshot then will be called aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. That's to be expected. I want you to see the distinctions. Snapshot A basically is holding a gun while standing by your car door. That's lawful. If you take a look at Snapshot B, you're pointing the gun at an unarmed man's chest because he's yelling at you over a parking space. That's a felony. So let's put it this way, and we're going to slow it down a little bit because this is where people get confused. Simply stepping out of a vehicle with a firearm held down at your side, pointed safely at the ground, is not automatically a crime. We got that, right? But the law does not stop right there. The next part matters. If that person steps out with the firearm down and says, back up, stay away from me, and saying something else like that, then it can still be looked at as a defensive posture. Have no illusions about that. And depending on the circumstances. But if that person steps out with his firearm or her with the firearm and starts yelling threats like, I'll shoot you, come over here and see what happens, or you're dead. Now that changes everything. Absolutely. And given the firearm, the words, the tone, the distance, the movement, and whether a reasonable person would believe a violence was about to happen, that's when protection can turn into intimidation. That is where self-defense can turn into provocation. And that is why in police work, we do not look at the chaotic events as one long movie. We cannot do that. We must break it down second by second. In 1 second, a person may be lawfully armed. In the next second, if they use that firearm and their words to threaten or control another person through fear, that can be a crime. And here's why it is so messy in this case. He was advancing. So how are you going to claim Bart was in fear? Dead man can tell no tales. And the tape shows he was advancing in spite of a gun being pointed at him. So the question is not simply, why did she have a gun out? The real question is going to be, what was she specifically doing with the weapon? What was she and he saying? Was she trying to protect herself? Or was she using that gun to intimidate someone like Bart? The latter is in question. That's why this is all messy. These differences matter because a gun held safely can be protection, but a gun combined with threatening words can be a criminal act. I know some of you are going to go ahead and talk about Walmart and their corporate laws and say, well, Walmart in their stores, they don't permit open carry nor on the curtilage of their property, and particularly their parking lot. But Walmart would have to go ahead and press those charges. And that's not evident right now. If the state can prove that she raised the weapon before he ever made a physical movement to harm her, she becomes the initial aggressor in that specific second. You cannot unlawfully introduce a deadly weapon to a shouting match and then claim you had no choice to shoot because the other person didn't back down from your legal threat. But this is why the case is so fiercely contested, because we have to look at the snapshots after the weapon came out. When does just holding a gun, once again, become a major crime? And this is where we're all up in a tizzy about in this case. So that's why this case is just a legal minefield, because every second of that parking lot interaction is a different snapshot. And the defense will focus heavily on the latter snapshots, where she is actively backing away, retreating several feet, and frantically calling 911 to get police assistance while he keeps advancing. And they will argue those later seconds prove her terror was real and that she did everything possible to avoid a fight. But the prosecution is going to freeze the frame on the very beginning and the origins of this tape. They're going to look at the exact moment she left the safety of the vehicle's cabin and ask a jury basically this type of question. Did she exit to defend her life, or did she exit to escalate an argument? And remember, you have no duty to retreat here. This is duty to retreat and stand your ground. So I want to hear from you on this specific legal boundary. Forget the shooting for a moment. You need to go ahead and put that to the side. Look strictly at the origin. Does stepping out of the vehicle with the weapon safely down make her the instigator in this? Or does the crime only begin the moment the barrel is raised? Drop your analytical thoughts in the comments below. Keep it respectful, as you did with the last video. And let's discuss the mechanics of this all. And once again, what do I think will happen? You'll find out once again in the comments below. I'm Jerome Hill. This is the Hill of Justice, and thank you for watching.
This is the Hill of Justice.